What is going on, everybody? My name is Northy, and today I'm doing something a little different. You can tell because I'm actually holding the microphone. It's a little bit of a different story. I don't know. I just know that some people like holding the microphone when they make videos like this, so I decided, you know what? I'm going to do the same. I have no original thought in my body, but I am here to talk today about the Brownlow Medal vote that happened on the Monday night. That was awesome, by the way. Amazing. The fact that 5 people were available for the Brownlow Medal to win it, at least in the last round, just made it so exciting. The entire last round was so much excitement and really keen on it. But I am here to basically talk about the controversy around it. I think I saw an article talking about how there were up to 35 bad calls, or potentially bad calls, dependent on how you saw it. But I am more just interested in the fact of talking about whether there's ways to change it up and to make it better. Because a lot of people have their problems with it. Whether right or wrong is up for everyone else to decide, really. But I personally will be going through what I believe could potentially fix it, a few ideas and suggestions, and whether it can be fixed, because that in itself is a big question about the Brownlow Medal race and the Brownlow Medal voting system. It's all a big thing that hopefully we'll be able to get to the bottom of today. But again, I'm going to quickly mention to you guys, if you guys do enjoy this video and find it enjoyable to watch, be sure to leave a like on it, subscribe to the channel if you are new. It's all very much appreciated. I mentioned in my AFL The Losers video that I'm going to try and make more content like that, so this is that content, especially over the finals and over the off season. So I'm hopeful that you guys will be keen in joining me again. But I want to change up the background a little bit. I don't know. I'll take this off. I'll just put some Subway Surfers up there or something. I don't know. We'll find something to do. Keep your brain enjoyable. That's not important. We are going to be talking about, yes, the Brownlow Medal and how we can fix it up. Some votes I really want to get off the top of my head. The Lachie Neale Brownlow actually could have been changed up, because a lot of people are talking about his performance it was one of the earlier rounds. I had a massive reaction to it on the live stream that I did for the Brownlow Medal count, but it was a ridiculous game where he had like 20 posies, a couple marks, and he managed to get himself 3 votes for that one. I live reacted to that, knowing the stat line as well, going, he's not getting a vote. And then when he got 3, I had the exact reaction that you'd expect. But I don't think that was the worst one. I think we all know what the worst one was. Jason Horne-Francis with 3 votes for a 13 disposal game with 54% disposal efficiency is what I should say. But oh my god, how does someone get 3 votes for a performance like that? That makes me think that the umpires aren't given access to stats before they vote. And I know that often you can't give all the votes just purely based on stats, but surely there's an exception. Surely when it comes to that, there is an exception. That was unreal. I couldn't believe that he was getting that, and it did make me laugh a little bit. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter too much. It really doesn't matter. But I am just happy that someone very deserving won it, even though Lachie Neale maybe didn't expect to get it. I think he has always been a really solid player. I 100% saw him winning his first one. I remember back that year, I think it was 2020 when he won it, when he won his first one. I 100% called it. I said Lachie Neale very confidently is winning that Brownlow, and he did. I think a lot of people had Dacos winning this one, and then second up Bont. I thought Bont was having the roughest night ever. I think he will go down, and I hope it doesn't happen. I do hope he wins a Brownlow. I think he will go down as the best player to never win a Brownlow Medal. I think he is just that unlucky sometimes. He actually had the lead before the last vote was called, and then Lachie Neale took the 3 and then took the medal. Those are just a few of the thoughts about the voting on the night. I know there's a lot more we can go through, and I was sent a few on Twitter that, again, I could go over it over and over again. Errol Gulden getting 1 vote for a 42 posse 2-goal game that they did lose in, and he did point that out before the final round was called, but a lot of people thought he was stiff. Nick Dacos, I think, doing something very close to that as well, and not getting a single vote is pretty crazy. But a lot you can go through and a lot you can get annoyed at, but we should just be happy that we are celebrating great plays and great players all around the league. We're in a good time, clearly, as shown by the fact there were so many people with a chance to win a Brownlow medal. That means there's a lot of talent on display. Now, let's talk about how we can fix this, because as I mentioned, I don't know if umpires have access to stats. I don't know how they process their voting system. I'm sure someone has gone into depth with it and someone has an idea as to what they're doing. I really want to quickly point out what I think are the parameters for someone who were to vote on this system or were to vote for the Brownlow medal if it weren't to be the umpires, because the umpires, a lot of people criticize, just in general, they're umpires. I mean, everyone's going to have a problem with them. Even if you say right in the moment, oh yeah, I know umpires have the hardest job in the world, you're still going to be yelling abuse at them when you get to a game. It's just the way it goes. And they have some of the toughest jobs in the world, if I'm being completely honest. Having crowds of people screaming abuse at them, it wouldn't be fun. But I really want to quickly get the parameters for the voting done here. I believe that the voters, first off, they must have a neutral stand, and it could be very hard to find what a neutral stand is. I guess that's why umpires are given the opportunity to do the Brownlow voting, because they're the closest they can get to neutral. They must always be present at every single game. Pretty obvious. I think that's pretty obvious at least, but it'd kind of suck if the people who were voting for the Brownlow medal were in a different state watching on the TV. I feel like that'd just be kind of a bit messy. It obviously can't be coaches. Coaches have the AFL-CA MVP. That's their award. So coaches are kind of already taken up and out of the way, and they must have to have the best possible access in every single game. So that's why it's so hard to go outside of the umpires, because the umpires are in and amongst it every single time. What can you say? The water boy, the trainers, what? They're the other closest outside of the players themselves. And like, I had someone suggest in the chat when I was doing the live stream that maybe players should vote. Maybe the players should be voting. And I don't know how I feel about that. It could potentially be alright, but at the same time, how would that even work? Because teams themselves could manipulate. If they win enough games, they could just say, alright, this person we want to bring a Brownlow this year, we'll just keep giving them 3 votes. Keep giving them 3 votes. And it just becomes messy. And you don't know whether that could be fixed by making it random players get picked each time. Don't know if that could be fixed up in some other way. I think it's just too complicated getting players if they were to somehow vote. So that's why this is such a hard thing to kind of work out, because a lot of people do have problems with the umpires being the voters, but I don't think they realize just exactly who could replace them. Who could realistically replace them? You could say committee from the AFL, but they're not always going to be at games, and they're not going to have the best access, as I mentioned with the parameters. Again, these 4 parameters, they look kind of simple, and they sound kind of simple, but you got to realize there's not many people who realistically can fall under those parameters. So, a few suggestions. This is it really could go either way, whether you agree with me or not. If you don't, that's fine. I don't expect people to agree with me. I expect everyone to have their own opinions, but specific assigned voters, either from the AFL or somewhere else that can provide and assure a neutral ground. So, whether that's the AFL sending out a specific group of people who they've confirmed will have a neutral ground and don't have any background or potential things getting in the way, which again, that's so hard to do. You do not know whether you can confirm someone is neutral, whether like you know which team they go for and you just keep sending them to games that they do not barrack for the team. But again, then when you take it outside of that, when you assign voters, that could potentially introduce narrative-based voting. And I don't know how I'd feel about a Brownlow medal being based off of media. I really don't. If I'm being completely honest, if that was the case, Nick Dacos would have won by 10 plus votes. I really believe that would have been the case. Nick Dacos would have been the winner with 45 votes. I really do think that would have been the case. That's one suggestion. Another one is, as I mentioned, I don't know if they already have access, but give umpires access to stats after the game so they can discuss outside of just what they've seen whether they believe that these players rightfully deserve a Brownlow vote, because we get to the point where Jason Horne-Francis is getting 3 votes off of 13 disposals. It doesn't make sense. He clearly wasn't best on ground by a long shot. And again, it could be because we're not looking at something correctly or we're seeing it a different way, but I really think umpires should be basing it a little bit more off of the statistics. But again, I guess that's where the excitement of the Brownlow comes from. You can never tell. But my last one, and I'm actually kind of excited to kind of show this one off, because this could be really interesting, and this is probably the most outlandish suggestion. Allow fans to vote for the best 6 to 10 players on the field after each game to allow the umpires to vote on. Now, this opens a whole can of worms, and you notice that I also said 6 to 10 best players on the ground. Obviously, only 3 players get the votes, so right there, at the very minimum, 3 players get cut out from that equation. But the reason I have that margin for error is because it's very easy for fans to manipulate something like this. That's why the fan vote in NBA in particular, if you know the All-Star game, fan votes do play a part in the All-Star game voting. It's a very meaningless game, but sometimes All-Star selections can make players' careers. And so that's why it's also very, very interesting to see how much they would give power to the fans. I think it'd be kind of cool allowing fans to vote for the Brownlow Medal. That'd make it just more exciting. But then it also would somewhat become a popularity contest. That's a very obvious thing to point out. And 6 to 10 kind of is that margin that I want to give. So 6 being the minimum, because then you can half it off of votes from the fans, and 10 being the most, because surely at the point of 10, if it was, for example, Collingwood, the most popular fan base, versus Gold Coast, the least popular fan base, even if Gold Coast whooped, in some reality, whooped Collingwood by 100 points, there is a good chance that Collingwood fans would just absolutely blow out the fan vote and only let Collingwood players be available. And so that's why this suggestion is so outlandish, because even at 10, there are times where there will be players who should not be getting votes any day of the week somehow getting votes. So you'd hope that maybe the AFL collective as fans would be able to somehow find a way to connect and not make a joke out of the situation. You never know. You really can't tell, and that's why I think it wouldn't work out. And so I guess that kind of brings me to my final assessment on this whole situation and whole argument, is that I really do believe that umpires are the only people who will ever be able to vote for the Brownlow. They, as I mentioned, the parameters, they are the most neutral we can get. They're always present in every single game. You always see umpires around the field. They have to be there, otherwise a game does not happen. They're not coaches, and they have the best possible access every single game. They are in and amongst the action. That is the best access I think you can get outside of being an actual player. And I've already mentioned my problems with if players were somehow voting for this. So that's why I still believe umpires are the best to be voting every single year. However, as I mentioned in one of my suggestions, giving them stats after the game, if they don't already, and if that's the case, I have more questions for why they picked Jason Horne-Francis. Why? But at the same time, I'm not going to really stress too much about it. I think Jason Horne-Francis, although he had a pretty good night in terms of votes, he wasn't anywhere near the top of the table, at least within the top 10. I don't think he was very close. So it's just one little disappointing factor that he managed to get those votes. I'm hoping it wasn't against a team that was also having a player trying to get votes. I can't remember who he got those votes against, but I don't imagine it would have been too controversial or too impactful, I think is the word I'm looking for. But at the same time, this conversation, I feel like, is going to happen a lot more. And I think every single time the Brownlow comes around, there's going to be someone that we talk about being robbed. We're going to have conversations about umpires robbing players. We really are going to keep coming back to this. I feel like it's going to keep happening. And so that's just my opinions and my suggestions and what I think about the whole situation. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and enjoyed this discussion. If you did, let me know in the comments what you think about it, and let me know if you guys have any other suggestions as to whether you can improve the Brownlow votes in some way. If there is a possibility, you can let me know. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Thank you all very, very much for watching this one. I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.